When you're in it, you don't see all the things that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all important.
If you're an educator struggling with student behavior, staff stress, and systems that don't seem to work, this podcast is for you. We believe in learning with and from one another. We don't have to do this alone. Hey y'all, Doc Martha here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've been working with educators to create more trauma-informed schools for the last 14 years. Here we'll be talking with educators and leaders who are already doing this work, actively building trauma-informed schools. We'll talk about practical strategies, some that work and some that surprised us, and what it takes to move from theory to real sustainable practice. Because you know that this work isn't about quick fixes. It's about supporting educators, building useful systems, and sharing our learnings. Hi, Silvia. Thanks for coming to join me today.
Thanks for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've worked with kids and families for 20 years, and I have been doing trauma-informed schools work for the last 13, which is where you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us.
And I've been an educator, so that means I've held many hats. I've been a classroom teacher, instructional coach, administrator, which is how we met when I was principal. Mm-hmm. And now I am coaching new leaders.
Nice. You like that?
I actually am completely loving it. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm really glad. So we met at an elementary school.
Yes. It was my first year as principal. I had been an assistant principal for 5 years previous, so thought I knew what I was getting myself into, but quickly figured out, oh no, there's way more that happens when you're the principal.
It's a different
ballgame. And I think, you know what was also unique that first year, I didn't have an assistant principal. So I was solo. So I had to find.
That's right.
That's why I think I leaned on you quite a bit, and my social worker.
Right.
As well.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was my first year in being embedded at a school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember feeling like, who is Silvia going to talk to? Because, right, teachers had each other. Sometimes they had grade level people they could talk to. They had coaches, some of them. But the principal can't go and say, oh, this teacher is driving me up a wall. Yeah. That's not,
it's not cool, yeah.
No, you can't be talking to other teachers about that. And so I feel like I did.
You were definitely an ear to listen.
Yeah. And I knew nothing about any of the things, right? So it was more, for me, it was kind of almost like, not therapy exactly, but I was sort of in the therapeutic mode in terms of I was just listening, because I couldn't have given you any advice, even if I had wanted to, because I knew nothing about really being in a school. Mm-hmm. It was kind of a wild year.
It was a wild year in every aspect, and good and bad ways. So definitely a steep learning curve, but also very, I don't know, I also felt really thankful for that year, because we went through so much, but we learned so much. At least I felt like in hindsight, I could say I learned a lot that year.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we're like, oh yeah, I fumbled that. Don't do that again.
Oh my gosh.
Or oh look, I stuck to my guns, and look, something good came. Yeah, it worked out. Right.
Well, and you were coming into, it was kind of a fraught situation, right? The previous principal and what had happened there. So it was kind of a.
So it was one of those, it was that false sense of, it could have been a false sense of security. And because coming in, I was, I walked on water for them, because I wasn't simply for the fact that I was not the previous principal.
Right.
But I knew not to fall into that trap, because I knew I would soon step in it with them, and then they would think I was the worst principal.
Right.
Even worse than the one previous to me.
Now that I've done this work for this many years, I feel like I often hear principals say that in the very first year, they don't try to start a bunch of new things because they're not going to have buy-in from their teachers. And so you actually inherited the Hearts program.
Yes.
It was already there.
Yes.
And so you were just like, okay, this is a program that we're doing. Not because you had chosen it necessarily, but because it was already in place.
Yeah, it was. And I'm thankful that it was in place, because I feel like that was the one, it was a good thing. I totally 100% believe in it. And I didn't know, the fact I didn't know about it, but that the whole staff was completely bought into it. I think was a plus. So I was the only one new to it. And so, and luckily, I didn't disagree. Like
Right. Yes.
I wasn't holding down, like it wasn't like open court curriculum that I'm like, everybody loved it except for me.
Right.
No, it was definitely something that I'm like, oh wow, like people really are behind this. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because to me, it was not ahead of its time, but like I had come from other schools that had similar population of students, low socioeconomic, pretty diverse, and with similar issues because of, just community violence, just, home situations, staff also just feeling it. And I think the power of this program really is kind of like named it, help people have common language around it so we could all address it in a way that it made sense to everybody.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I think I learned that year was how unifying it could be as a set of ideas, principles, words, names of things that allowed us to sort of, because it worked with content, it worked with social emotional learning, it worked with whatever restorative practices was in place, it worked with, right, we could use the same language in any of those contexts and it would still work.
Yeah, and I think what was cool about it was, like you said, it connected to all different aspects of school life and everybody's role. Because I think just that one of the big differences, and I know it wasn't unique to my experience, the idea, like I'll name teachers. Like teachers like, oh, this is a social emotional problem. Go talk to the social worker or go talk to the counselor.
Right.
Like this way, like, no, I have some skill, I have some knowledge, some strategies that I can employ to help the student. So it's not go to that person, like it's
over there. Right. Yeah, I think there's a way that so much gets isolated or separated out like that, not just in schools, but in lots of large organizations. And so Hearts was sort of like, yes, in all these areas, there's a thing. And I think it also gave teachers another place to turn. Somebody, meaning me, there was someone that they could talk to. There had been previous therapists for 3 years before I came. But they also could come to me and say, oh my gosh, now Silvia said this and I don't know what to do with it. Or Silvia didn't do what I think she should have with this kid, right? And they had someone they could talk to besides just like complaining to another teacher. And, I always said, you could talk to Silvia about this. And often people didn't really want to. And sometimes I offered to like be there as part of it. But I think that only worked because they believed that I was coming in with a frame that worked. Do you know what I mean? I feel like they if I had just been like a therapist on the ground at the school, I don't think that would have been the same. Right.
Like you had a common knowledge, right? I mean, I think you also benefited from coming in with being connected to Hearts.
Yeah.
And oh, what we know.
Right.
So you're even a step ahead of me.
Which like I didn't actually know.
Right.
But I was learning quickly and and it was it was like my job. So it was an interesting thing because I think the first year Joyce Dorado did the training for you all the beginning of the year because I didn't even start until the school year had already begun. And so I hadn't actually had that training. I mean, I was learning about it as I went, but I had not actually gone through the same exact training. But I had many of the words related to that, like rider off the horse and trauma wears a groove in the brain, all of those sort of analogy things that we still teach to this day.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's fun. I appreciate it because it's like things that I had thought about or like maybe had questions about, I got clarity or more information about to be able to deal with, or just like have some more knowledge to draw from to be able to like to make decisions on what next steps to take or what actions to take or who to call in and collaborate with. And I think so it helped me also sound more articulate about ideas that I may have had.
Right. Yeah, I think that, so Dan Siegel calls it name it to tame it. And I think that he talks about it in terms of like emotions, but I think it's true for a lot of things. If we have the words to describe it in a way that someone else can also like, oh, I know those words and this makes sense to me, that allows us to...
We're speaking the same language.
Right. And like when you said like to be more articulate, it's almost like it seems more articulate just because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? If you're talking about, I don't know.
We're talking like, it's just like all the lingo, right? That's like all the specialized language for a certain field.
Right.
But it's not just jargon. It
has meaning.
Yeah.
It's useful.
Yeah.
Yes. It's sort of like, I feel like if I were talking about therapy things and using diagnoses, people have to have a shared understanding of what those diagnoses mean to make what I'm saying make sense.
Right.
And so one of the things that HEARTS, which is Healthy Environments in Response to Trauma in Schools, was we started with a whole school, or as many people as possible, PD, where we talked about these main ideas.
And when you say whole school, you mean whole school like lunch lady, custodian, paraprofessionals, classroom teachers,
right,
office staff, everybody.
Office staff. We don't always get everybody, but I think that when we do, it just goes better because everyone is using similar language. And then it's also true that your school opted into that. Because I will say that in another program with HEARTS, schools were opted in without consent.
Oh.
Like there was a later grant that schools just got nominated to be part of that.
Right.
I think an elder was part of that, but that was because
we wanted it.
Wanted to be.
Because the original grant ran out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original grant ran out, but I managed to stay on another year because someone at the district funded it. I don't remember who, but some program.
Yeah.
Health and well-being, whatever.
Yeah.
That was something like that. Funded me for a second year, which I think I still call the golden year. I feel like so many things were just in place that year.
Yeah.
Not that there were no problems, but
it definitely felt united and
right.
Yeah.
And you just said it only took 1 year, but really that was the 5th year.
Yeah.
So there were 3 years before I got there where people were kind of getting the information and students were getting some therapy. And then I was there the 4th year where I was seeing clients and also doing the work in the meetings and stuff like that. But I really do think that part of what made that golden, first of all, because there was some saturation. But we had new teachers that year, 9.
Yes.
Didn't we get 9? I think there were 9. I don't know if they were all teachers, but I think we had 9 new people.
We did. Yeah, because of the mass exodus once we became labeled a zone school.
Right. So there was a sort of a saturation in the culture of El Dorado already that we talked about these kinds of things out loud versus just, being mad at a kid or angry with parents. But I really think that me coming back was kind of like magical, not because I'm magical, but because they already knew me.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to start over. And in the previous years, because this program is a program run through a university, which meant that they use postdocs and they only have 1 year. And so me being able to come back meant kids didn't have to get to know me again. Teachers who had already worked with me the year before believed that I was doing something reasonably good.
Right.
And so that continuity is so important. And now we're talking a lot about in our new business, which is hardcore consulting, how to help therapists stay and be more part of a community so that they also can get that continuity. Because that continuity, it made kids more ready to come with me to do therapy. It made parents more likely they had seen me on the school grounds.
Yeah.
And if someone said, I think this child needs therapy, the parents may have already seen me multiple times before I had to sit down with them and say, hey, this is what I can do for you and your family, right? Yeah, we've been talking about how can we make that, how can we help other people do that, even if they're not part of HEARTS or hardcore consulting, but how can we help give some continuity? Because in schools now, what I mostly see is that there are multiple therapists who come in, they see one child and they leave.
Yeah.
And so then during the week, 2 or 3 different therapists may come.
Right. And then, like you said, and they're mostly from postdocs that are serving these children.
Right. Or we're even master's level.
So they're not going to stay for past a year.
Right. And so that's a loss for children. It's a loss for teachers. I was just meeting with a group of social work interns, and I was talking about having follow-up with teachers, but some of them are only in a school 1 day a week. So if they see clients, they may not have a chance to talk with teachers.
Right.
And I really think that it's so important. It's so important in that first year. So the expectation for me as a hearts clinician at the school was that I met with the clients, which I think I had 8 to 10 client hours per week, which that first year I think meant 7 clients because somebody I was seeing multiple times a week. And that I met with the teacher. And the teachers already knew that because other therapists had been there before me. And I remember that I met with this teacher and she said, I don't really need to do this. I don't know how important it is. And I was like, well, I understand, but let me just come and I'll come whenever it works for you. And I remember I used to go at the end of the day. And so the teacher would be cleaning up or putting things away and I would just be there. And it often felt, we didn't talk about the student, but the teacher talked about their own life. And it wasn't really therapy. But again, I was a listening ear of somebody that was not connected in any way to the other things. And I wasn't like part of the district. I wasn't going to report this back to your principal. And over the course of some months, the student in that classroom started doing better. And I did not say, you need to do these things to the teacher. I was not giving the teacher a work to do on my behalf. But I do think that the teacher's general stress level went down a little bit based in part having someone to talk to.
Yeah, that's self-care.
Right? And that made their interaction with the students a little easier, a little better. And I think...
more patience.
Like a little more patience, a little more space to be like, okay, this isn't going well, and we're okay. And so like when I think about interns and postdocs and whatever people like that only have the 1 year, they only have a limited amount of time. Because I was there 3 days a week the first year and 4 days a week the second year. So I was there. I could see clients at different times.
Right.
Because I remember I had a teacher who was like, no, you cannot take this client out. It was just once a week. But she was like, no, you cannot take, that's math or reading. I don't remember which class it was, but she was like, no, you cannot. So I was varying that clients every week. I took a different time. But I could.
Because I
was there often enough. And I think also me being there meant that sometimes I saw stuff or heard stuff that I could interrupt in the moment. That I could say, hey, what's going on? And people would be like, oh, well, because I could see that, right? And like, I feel like if you were walking through the hallway, you might also see it. But if you're walking and you have a purpose and you got to get somewhere else, you might not be able to address it in that moment, you as a principal, right? And if another teacher walked by, that teacher is going somewhere. They're not going to stop and say, hey, what's happening here? Unless it was, a really big escalation happening in the hallway. But I remember I was walking past the lunchroom and I had a client at that time who had already been in trouble for a number of things. And as I was walking past, I glanced in and the client had their hand out and they were about to hit someone on the rear end, which was a thing. It was like Gangnam Style. I don't remember what it was related to, a song or a dance or something. And they were all doing it. But I did not want my client to be doing that. Anyway, I just stopped moving. Because I was walking past. I just stopped. And that was enough for that client to look up and see me. And then they waved. And then they went back to their lunch.
Went to the other direction.
And I was like, okay. And then I just kept walking. But like if I was a teacher, I might not have even noticed. I might not have looked over. And so like having a person in the building who can sort of help hold the frame, I think changes the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one thing. I think that was also another gift of that second year because we had so many more staff members than, that kind of like you were very, like you came at it from that lens of, how you're supporting all the heart's efforts, like all the social emotional learning and you checking in on your clients and just making sure like all the PBIS, all the positive behavior incentive systems that we were creating and implementing.
Right. Care team sitting on the meeting where we talked about all that stuff.
But we also had, I had a full-time literacy coach. I had a full-time instructional reform facilitator with, who I could have support in math or other areas of wherever academic interventions were needed.
Right.
We had a reading intervention teacher.
That's right.
So all these
a behavior coach.
We had a behavior coach.
And there was a social worker already.
Yeah, full-time. Yeah, so social worker, full-time, behavior coach, full-time, student advisor. That already existed, but that continued. Still. Yeah. Our noon monitor became full-time because they took on a T10 role as like campus supervisor, like security type of role. So we had people there full time. And I would venture to say as far, like, I think everybody really loved their job. And so that was a great start. And I believe for the most part, they liked our kids.
Right.
And so we're able to make those connections. And so kids were, I think there were a lot of adult arms wrapped around them, you know, metaphorically speaking, like to make sure that they were getting what they needed.
Yeah. It felt very, maybe not family, but like community. It felt like a community, not just a school where you went to school or where you went to work.
Yeah.
It felt very connected.
For sure. And I think the other thing I want to highlight is also we had a lot of male adult figures in elementary school, which is not always what you see.
Yeah. I think that second year there was a male teacher, right?
Yeah. 1 or 2 male teachers that second year.
And then there was the front office people. There was
the student advisor.
There was the vice principal that year.
Yes. Male.
Yeah. The T10.
Yes.
Whatever that job title is called, also male. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And we had, for a little bit, we had a para that was a 1-to-1 that was male.
Oh, yeah.
But then they moved on because, did they stay the whole year? Whenever the student moved on, they moved on.
Oh, yeah. I think they stayed the whole year.
But maybe they stayed the whole year.
And we had like the beginning of the year where I gave the presentation at the beginning of the year. So that was, that continuity really helped, I think. Yeah, it was a good year.
It was a good year. And it's funny because it's funny because what I think I remember from the first year where we were like, oh, we need to, that's when we established the care team, right? Separate from the instructional leadership team.
Yes.
And so that was their focus was around, positive behavior, the PBIS, like how to roll that out, how to get input from, and like making sure that everybody's bought in. I can't remember what it was called, but there were like these 10 values that were listed that people were, that each month was, like previously they had done like 1 value a month for the school year. I forgot what they were called. They had a name. Anyway, that people were like, it's too many, and again, what I had learned from principal school, like, yes, like you want people to be bought in. And so keep it simple. So we're like, let's do something different, which was, I don't know if they didn't expect me to agree to make changes, but I did. And we came up with, the Super Me's and the
Super Me's was such a good thing.
And like, do your part. Remember like being like, I don't know, we had some cool little like sayings that came from that. Yeah. From revamping it, and then everybody was bought in.
Right. Yeah, I think people really were into it. And then I think like the students were into it. I remember, I think it was the first year that they did a contest of, remember they did the drawings and they put them on their doors. So each class, each grade did a different safe, respectful, responsible, whatever those words were. Then they drew pictures of what it means to be safe in the hallway, what it means to be safe in the lunchroom. And then they put them on the doors and then we voted. I don't know, we voted, but we like nominated. Everybody got a prize maybe, but I don't remember how we did the prizes, but I remember that we adults went around and we looked at them and kids were so into it.
Yeah.
And kids could definitely tell you what it meant, these words, you know, and they loved wearing the capes.
That blew my mind. That I was like, that is so hokey. There is no way you're going to get 4th and 5th graders.
The capes were such a big deal.
They loved it.
Loved the capes. I remember the first year, I think a teacher made the capes.
Yes.
And I remember we had Velcro and the Velcro just died. And so then we were using safety pins, which was like, I don't know if that's safe. But it was a whole thing.
Yeah. But they loved it.
They loved them.
They did.
I actually took that idea to another school and they also loved them. Yeah. And they used snaps there. And I was like, we never even thought of that. You can put a snap right on a thing.
Yes, you could. Dang it. That just shows how much we don't sew around here.
We had no idea. Actually, I think they used snaps, and then they did the second year, they had like a ribbon that came out so you could tie it.
I forgot when it was. Like, I think I want to say one of the kids that got lice, and so we had to get rid of all of them. And start over. And so I think, but by then the teacher who had made them had moved on. Right. So we just bought them. We ended up buying, and so they were just tied from that point forward.
Yeah, that's funny. So it's nice to catch up about the stuff that we've done together.
Memory lane. It's always nice. Right? It's good because it's like, oh yeah, I forgot we did that. That's important to remember.
There's so many pieces of that.
It's good because what is that saying? Like, you don't learn by doing, you learn by reflecting on what you did.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I often think about that I think y'all did really, really well, it didn't have anything to do with me. I just happened to be there when it happened. But I remember that at the end of the year, or maybe the beginning of the new year, we all met together as a care team. So it must have been the beginning. Mm-hmm. And before kids were there. And we listed out all the kids from the year before that we thought might need help of any kind. And then we grouped them. And then, I think there was like the kids that we thought would need school, whatever, what's the word I want?
Like reading intervention.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. That was in one section. But then we talked about all the kids that we thought these kids could use a group. These kids might need therapy, right? Because I had like a therapy set up that how many people could come.
Yeah.
But like we had all of these kids listed. And I remember that we arranged the first couple of months worth of lunch groups, lunch buddies.
Oh yeah, lunch buddies.
Buddies. And they were kind of like social emotional groups. They were a little bit of like how to make friends,
how to be good friends,
how to be kind to one another. And they basically just would bring their lunch to the wellness center and sit with someone, which mostly I think it was the behavior coach or the school social worker. But we also had AmeriCorps or something.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, who wasn't there full time, but they were there a couple days a week. And so then they would also sometimes run the lunch bunch. And then obviously there were going to be new kids and we wouldn't know what they would need. But I remember being like, oh, here we've already just talked about preventatively checking in with all of these kids. And it wasn't every kid. I feel like sometimes people think, oh, you're going to have too many, but we had enough. And I remember we were like, okay, 4 kids per group. The group runs for 6 weeks. Who do we need in the very first group? We talked also about who to put in as a ringer, right? So it was like, okay, if we're going to talk about social skills, we need 1 kid there who can do social skills because we had learned the year before that if we just put them in, all the kids who needed help, then now you got 4 kids who are like, rah, bouncing off the walls. And so we talked about who would be a helper in this situation.
Yes.
And I remember just being like, wow, this is really a community coming together.
For sure.
And saying, we're going to support everybody. Some kids needed that one-to-one therapy thing, but not every kid did. So many kids just needed a little bit of something to help them.
And that was just reorganizing the time because I know that historically the social worker was out on lunch duty. And so was the behavior coach doing another lunch duty. But instead of being out doing lunch duty, like, let's maximize your skills and do this during lunchtime.
Right.
Go do your thing.
Which I think also helped with like lunch recess, right? Because or lunch time, because maybe 3 of the frequent flyers were in the wellness center with a person.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's not like they didn't get recess. They got recess, but they already had that.
No, just for the lunch, though.
Yeah, just the lunchtime. Yeah, I just wanted to like clarify that. Yeah, it was lunchtime, but had that adult folk, attention.
Right. And I think sometimes kids would stay and play a game, which they needed too, But I remember feeling like a bit of relief as the therapist in the room when I saw people listing all the names of kids they thought needed something. And I was like, oh, well, I for sure cannot see all of those children. And then I was like, oh, nobody's asking me to. This is like a community effort that we're all going to...
Like, who could do what?
Yeah.
To be able to see you, there was also like, it had to be like a true tier 3.
Yeah. And I think it was kind of astonishing that even in the first year that I was there, we reduced all of the physical fighting.
Oh my gosh.
It was so much. And it was down to like almost 0.
And it was like, they were fights. They were fighting. I'm like, oh my God.
What is happening right now?
I remember this. It was, I don't even know what game they were playing. It must have been kickball. But I remember this one kid was running. Chunky little guy, could have been a linebacker, was being chased by another little linebacker, slightly taller than him. And he's, Miss Cordero came and hid behind me. And I'm like, oh, because the guy was just coming for him, coming. And I was like, oh, this guy's going to knock me over and I'm going to fall on top of this kid. And I'm like, just stop. And he stopped.
Amazing.
But I was ready to be tackled on the floor.
Right.
But he listened and we were able to get, I want to say it was the behavior coach who was there, like, able to, okay, come on.
Come with me.
Let's see what's going on. So, phew. I didn't get knocked to the ground. No bone, all bones intact.
Real dangers in schools.
Yes.
Knocked over by kids. Yeah. There was a lot of good support.
Yeah. And I want to definitely echo that sentiment. Like, it definitely felt like a community. Like, even though there was turnover of teachers, but I think there was like enough of that community feeling, or that culture of like, we're here to support each other and the families and the kids.
Right.
So it definitely felt like people who were new kind of came on board about that.
Yeah.
So there was one or two that didn't, but
yeah, it was like
didn't stay long.
like a culture of caring, right? We care, and so we're not just going to throw everybody else under the bus.
Yeah.
There was a way in which I think people, because I've been in a lot of schools, and there's so much division, and there's so much like pointing fingers, like those people aren't doing their job or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel like that year. It felt very like, no, we care, and so we're going to check in. We're going to. Yeah. Before we just say, how dare you? Or why is that person doing whatever? It was like, okay.
Why should I do this? That's their job. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I think the first year there were also like a million committees. And I think the second year we changed that. You all changed that to something a little more manageable. I remember the first year we were working on the BIP.
Oh, yes.
It was such a thing. It had been worked on for the year before you got there, before we got there.
Martha, I would say almost every other year we had to go back and work on that. But we finally got to the point where, like, what else can we say or do? It's not going to change much. Maybe a narrow, like we had the flow chart. Yes. That was the big thing, the big flow chart, right?
It was such a thing.
Office referral. Teacher handled behavior, and like we color coded it, same information, just presented a little differently to meet people's palate. But
it was a very interesting. I was kind of like, I had never worked in a school before, and I was kind of like, do we have to say each behavior? And like, it was very detailed. Mm-hmm. Like, here are all the things the school expected for a teacher to handle in the classroom. And I remember being kind of surprised to see stuff like eye rolling or like. The very small, minor disrespects, I would call them. But I feel like in the second year, it was kind of like, it felt like more cohesive, that we didn't need to go look at a chart to figure out what we were going to do or not do, but we understood. Yeah. And I think the other thing that happened the second year that I thought was really great was that I think that feedback to teachers got better. Like, I feel like there was a thing they complained about was they were like,
we don't know what happened.
We don't know what happened after it happened. And so then you all used a different, I think there were little passes or something. And you all checked a box or wrote something and then sent the kid back with it.
Yes.
And so, I don't know, like, if that's a perfect situation for everyone all the time, but it definitely worked for teachers feeling like, okay, they kind of understood what was happening at some level so that they didn't have to feel like.
Yeah, and I think people were more willing to complete the form because people were, teachers were saying, like, I don't have time to do the form.
Right.
I just needed, like, they need to be removed and handled.
out of my face.
Yeah. It's like, but if we don't hear from you, we're going to take the word of the child. And we know that that's probably a third of the story.
Yeah. I remember there was a lot of, I think that second year we talked a bunch about data. And I think there's some resistance to collecting data or whatever, but we learned so much. Mm-hmm. So I think it was the first year that the behavior coach started collecting data. Oh no, it had to have been the second year because it was wellness center data. Remember
it's like why they were down there in the wellness center. Yeah. But also like what grade level, which teacher.
What time. The kids were signing themselves in first on a paper and then eventually on an iPad. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I remember that we were like, where are all these little kids coming from? And then it turned out it was all one teacher making a lot of referrals to the wellness center. Yeah. And then I went in. And I don't think I had a child in the classroom, but I went in and I had a conversation and said, what's going on? And then we were able to talk through some classroom strategies that reduced that time. I mean, they were fine to come in because mostly they were pretty regulated when they got there. It wasn't like kids coming in screaming. But I remember that we had the data so we could go back and look and was like, oh, it's all coming from this one classroom. So let's see what's going on with this one classroom. And it wasn't that anybody was doing anything wrong. It was just that.
And it wasn't, like, I got you. Like, what are you doing wrong? Right. Like, exactly. It wasn't that. It was more like, what supports can we put in place for you and for the children?
Right. Yeah. And I remember I did several observations in that class that year. And the teacher, I think, was great. But I think that the teacher's understanding of what the wellness center was for was not quite what we had thought it was for. I think that teacher was new that year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the data made it so that we could do that thing. And then that teacher felt supported. And then the kids were not quite so many kids coming to the wellness center, which made the wellness center easier to run. And the kids really enjoyed signing themselves in even before we had the iPad.
And the kids were pretty responsible and did not try to abuse the wellness center at all.
No. Which I think is a common worry that people have about peace corners and wellness centers is that, oh, well, the kids are just going to be there the whole day. And I think that you all did a great job of setting it up and saying, this is how it works. I remember that the behavior coach and the right, and then the field trips would come to the wellness center. You couldn't get a pass for your class until your class came.
Right.
And then there was a little talk about what it would be like and how they would sign in and all the things. And kids were signing in on paper.
Yeah.
And circling the smiley face or the
like, how are
frowny
you feeling
face
right now?
Yeah. I think that helped. The kids could sign themselves in. It helped make it so that an adult didn't have to do that. But it also, I think, helped kids feel like a little bit of agency, right? Well, I'm signing myself in.
Yeah.
And then they would take their own timers and set them
Yeah.
and go to their area.
Yes.
Because right there we had the separate areas in case you had multiple kids in there.
Yeah.
There was like a corner with a couch and a beanbag or something. And then there was like a corner that had more fidgety things.
Yeah, and then like the coloring maze thing.
Yes. And I think it really made it, I think that from door to sign in, there was already some change, you know, because I was like, oh, I got to do my sign in. And then there's a little bit of more prefrontal cortex going on there. Like, oh, this is how I sign in.
And I think, yeah, again, like, just to give kudos to the counselor, the ladies that ran the wellness center, because they did like really set up the expectations of what that space was for the kids and for the adults.
And we really didn't have kids who would just stay all day.
No.
I remember there was a kiddo, and she might have been a 5th grader, and the teacher, I can't remember, I think it was a 5th grader, but the teacher was like, I'm not sending any of my children to the wellness center. I will handle everything in the classroom, which is, I'm not saying that's a bad stance to take. It's a fine stance to take, but like if you have let's use the resources we have. And so this child was spending a lot of time, I think, in your office, actually. It was like hanging out in the front office and talking with the adults. And it was like, no, this is... So I went to that teacher and said, this was not a client of mine, but I went to the teacher and I was like, can we just, like, maybe we set up a plan and she's already out of your classroom. How much of the time? And she was like, oh, like half the day. And I was like, okay, so like, what if we just gave this kid passes to go to the wellness center just 10 minutes at a time? And the teacher really was like, I don't think that'll help. But I was like, well, what'll it hurt? She's already out of your class. And the kiddo came, used all the passes in the beginning, and then used less and less passes. And I remember being in the room. Maybe this happened when I wasn't there. Maybe this was the
year after?
Year 3. Because what I remember was that I didn't set it up or plan it. I just had the first conversation with the teacher. But I came in and was in the wellness center later in the year, and the child came in, set a timer for 1 minute, talked to everyone. When the timer went off, signed herself out and left. And I was like, wow, that's like magical, right? Because I feel like when I talk with teachers about something like that, a pass where they can go somewhere else for a short period of time, and then we reduce those passes over time, and then, let the kid build the skills to stay in the classroom, that people are like, no, she'll never come back or he'll never come back. And to watch this child with very little scaffolding reduce her time to where she was only staying. And I was kind of like, 1 minute? And everybody else was like, no, Martha. She still wants to do it. Let's give her the 1 minute. Yeah, that was kind of magical.
Yeah. And people, I think, like you said, it was... I think it worked because there was enough trust, because it was kind of co-created from that team. I mean, definitely like the social worker and the behavior coach took the lead, on getting it established. But I think there was that buy-in on because there was input from teachers, there was input from the staff in the office, the idea of not having kids go there for a break and for being in trouble and for the Band-Aid and for who knows who, all the other things that they go, like the idea also of, what was the word that they would say, like the space, like making that space like a neutral space, like you're not in trouble, like you're here to kind of like do a reset, take care of yourself, get yourself ready for learning.
Yeah. the wellness center was such a important addition to what was already happening there. Like, I think, because I remember that the office when before the wellness center, that the office was like where you went if you were in trouble, or if you had peed your pants, or if you were just wandering around and looking for someone to talk to. Like, there were so many people always in the, and I remember one day that the front desk person had it. It was there was so much noise.
I remember
and so many
exactly
kids,
which day.
This person just swept everything off of their own desk and told everyone to get the F out. And I remember that I was like, this is my job now. In my mind, I was like, I have got to, what can I do to make this place better? And I couldn't make the wellness center happen. But I did like start closing the door, which it was locked. And if I was at all in that area, I would say, why are you here? And send kids out. Like, I remember telling everyone anywhere near the office, like, let's just try to make the office. So then we started having kids sit outside if they were waiting for the nurse or a Band-Aid or whatever, or they would go into that other back office. Remember that there was sort of a couchy thing where I think the student advisor was there.
Oh, yeah.
And like, because I was like, oh, we cannot, if the front desk person is at this level of
dysregulation,
right? Like, let's not, I wouldn't want to work in a place like that either. So it was like, how can we make the office as separated as possible? And there were so many things we couldn't. Right. We didn't have a separate office for the nurse.
No.
And we didn't even have a nurse.
I think, no, we didn't. We had like
full time.
They came once a day, once a week.
Yeah. But when the wellness center opened, then we were able to start separating out like physically a little bit more. Right. And that was a huge benefit. Yeah.
And I think and also, if you remember, the social worker and the behavior coach didn't have a space before the wellness center either.
That's right.
Remember, right. Like they were like poaching wherever, not poaching, squatting.
Right, sitting wherever they could.
They were
to just
squatters that whole first year. Yeah, and so that also kind of, it helped really, like, I would imagine, make them feel like, oh, their work is being recognized, and by giving them their own space.
Right, and I think it helped the kids also. Like we had the talk it out corner. I think it helped kids feel like, okay, I'm here and this is what I'm doing, and I know because it's in this area.
Yeah,
and the wellness center was a portable.
Yes.
Right. I don't know what it's like now, but when I was there,
after their modernization to the building, it actually got its own little space, room in the annex building.
Okay, but it was just a portable. So I feel like sometimes oh, we don't have space for that kind of thing, and it's like, I mean, I know portables cost money, but it's not like you have to rebuild the building to get a place where kids could do a thing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. The good old days,
right?
Yeah. It's funny because I think, like, now in my current role, I've been having to pull out these old stories and, like, when I was a principal,
right?
We went through something similar, and this is what I learned, and so it's been kind of cool to go back and really think, like, I did some stuff.
You did.
I did do some stuff.
Yeah,
and I think that's, I mean, to go on about, like, I think that what, like, now is it really just, it's more about not teaching them so much, like, the technical skills on how to maybe create a master schedule, I mean, which are, yes, support with that. However, most of it is more like the human aspect of the job and, like, relationship building, trust building. And that's, like, if something's not working, it's more than likely due to that, like, lack of trust.
Right.
Or lack of feeling like you're included in decision making. Yeah, connected.
Right. Safety,
perfect word. Yes.
Safety, connection, and agency.
Yeah.
Those are I just keep talking about them all the time now. Because, if I feel safe enough, if I feel the trust between us, then when you say, hey, Martha, I don't know if that's really working that well. Yeah. I can maintain instead of just being like, oh, she hates me, and that connection allows that to happen too. That's another thing that I think that we did a bunch of that second year was we did a storytelling, remember? Yeah, like people told their story at the beginning of the year.
Beginning of the year, and then at our staff meetings.
I don't remember storytelling at the staff meeting.
I remember we had somebody, like, we had a panel one time where I think we asked them the question, maybe this was the third year then. So I remember we did storytelling. So, like, at the beginning of the year, I told my story. Right. And then I had people sign up for next. And I think the next person was the behavior coach who told their story at one of the staff meetings. And I remember there was a panel that we did where it was like 3 or 4 staff members. It included our student advisor on there. And I think it helped humanize him because he was not the most popular person on campus, but it helped people see where he was coming from.
Right.
In I forgot what the question was around the panel that every panel member had to respond to, but it was a different way to get more people to share.
Right.
Yeah. And so that
must have been the third year because I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember only the beginning of the year stuff, and then I was gone because the grant ran out again.
Yes.
Yeah. Or the money ran out.
Yeah, you had to finish. Yeah, you had to work through September or something, right?
I did. I had to work through September, and then I left. So I was like, "Welcome to the school. See you all later." Goodbye.
Deuces. I'm out.
Yeah. So now you're doing leadership coaching. And how long were you principal?
12 years. I know.
12 years.
I was a principal.
I guess that makes sense, right? Because I started 13 years ago. Wow. Yeah. And so you had a good run.
Yeah, I loved that school. I loved what we had going on. Loved the families, the kids. Definitely was committed to making that a better, I shouldn't say better, just continue with what we had and just making it really feel like they belonged. But I think after the pandemic, the needs of the adults and children and families, I think just, and principal, was just a lot more than I could provide anymore. So I'm like, I need to do something a little different.
Would you ever go back to principaling?
Yeah, I think I could.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. So at the end of last year, and not knowing if my position was going to be funded, I was like, would I go back? I went and I interviewed, and I'm like, and the questions that they gave me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do this with my eyes closed. And so it definitely boosted my confidence. Like, oh yeah, I know how to do this job. I could do this. So yeah, I would do it. I would do it again.
Yeah.
All right. I know. As I say that, I'm like, oh no, I'd be betraying my school. I almost said it. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go. I don't know. But yeah, I would do it again.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. It was nice to catch up and also to think about all the things because it's easy to forget. There were so many pieces at work those years. And so it's helpful to me as I think about the work that I'm now doing.
But it's important. I mean, because it's like when you're in it, you don't see all the things that you're doing. And they're all important.
Right.
All so important. Look, the impact they had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thanks, Martha.
Thanks a bunch.
All right.
We'll talk to you again later.
Of course.
Okay. Bye, y'all. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. If you're interested in learning more about our work or want to sign up for a consultation, check us out at hardcoreconsulting.com. Take care, y'all.